Preseason games are around the corner. The padded practices have arrived. The clips, the reports, all of it. So it's only right for us to make a few, I would say, vital rankings changes in reaction to the news, the depth charts, and all the injuries. Hayden, I have about 21 items written down that have impacted our fantasy rankings individually this week. It's going to be a big show.
It's going to be a big one. Hopefully this episode, there's enough clarity where you guys don't have to go read the headlines in the news today. You can just watch the show and feel plugged in.
And if you want more of this, just to let you know, every Monday and Tuesday after preseason games, we will post 2 of these shows on rankings updates after watching, yes, literally every single preseason game, so you don't have to. That's going to start on Monday, August 11th. So if you enjoy this, once again, hit that subscribe button. We're on the way, very close now, to 150,000 subscribers. Leave a thumbs up. It's totally free to all of you, and it's going to help you win your fantasy league. Doctor's orders. Okay, let's dive right into it. So much to hit on. And we'll begin with Joe Mixon, missing extended time. And that's kind of the clarity and the details that we have at this moment. He is on still the non-football injury list. This is in relation to his ankle and foot injuries. Hayden, the news has kind of shifted on this over the last couple weeks. But in this moment, what are you thinking about Joe Mixon, and where are you ranking him?
I have him at the running back 29. He's kind of at the ahead of some of the guys where we just have not really seen a ceiling in the NFL, but after guys that we feel pretty comfortable about being the NFL starters. So that's where I have him at. I think that his ADP is going to probably drop to the 100s range. I think that's going to be a little bit of an overcorrection. I think if this thing continues to linger, I think that we can end up pushing him down that way. But this stems from training in the offseason where, like about 3 months ago, he injured his foot or ankle. Aaron Wilson, who's covered the Texans for a long time, he said there's been no surgery with this, but that they're just going to kind of reevaluate this right before the season. He didn't know if he's going to play week 1 or not. Obviously, he's dealt with injuries like this before. At the same time, he's also been like a top 10 fantasy asset, like even this last year. So like to me, when I'm looking at this, he can't go behind guys like that literally just dislocated their ankle this last season with someone like Chris Godwin. To me, like there's a chance that this is just like them being cautious as he was last training camp, or after sitting out for a while, he was dominant right in week 1. But at the same time, he's dealt with a lot of injuries before. So I'm kind of middle grounding this as we like wait for more information. Like I'm not like going in to bury him to the 150s lands. I think that's way too big of an overreaction.
This one totally confuses me. And I look at the calendar, I see it's the end of July, early August, and say, okay, we have more than a month until week 1 of the NFL season goes along. But then I look at, Jane Slater, who has been around this organization at times, and said, quote, I'm told he injured his right foot ankle twice last year. This is a 3rd injury to it. If you look back on his injury history, I believe he has 5 ankle and foot injuries. You and I, though, did, multiple shows in June and May asking why is Joe Mixon, after being the running back 5 in points per game last year, still being a 5th round pick among the names like James Conner and Alvin Kamara, and even, younger, more high profile running backs ahead of those. And I didn't have an answer at that time. And I think part of it, Hayden, is, again, the communication has been very different. If we just go back and, I'm not calling out Adam Schefter here. He is fantastic at his job. But it sounded like just a week ago, on July 23rd, he posted that Joe Mixon was in a boot throughout the spring, but he's expected to be okay fairly soon. So something has changed here. Either it's something behind the scenes that it's not healing appropriately, because I don't think Schefty would just put out that information. Someone that knows every single word that he posts is going to be dissected by the fantasy community, even himself plays in fantasy leagues, that he would just flippantly say he's going to be okay. So it is on my radar that Joe Mixon is not going to play at all this entire preseason. We have no idea what the health is going to be. And that's why I've dropped him even lower than you. And I'm at like running back 35 now, when I was loading up, and that might be part of it. I was loading up on Joe Mixon in May and June, and now I'm just the exact opposite.
I think it just like goes into a case if you were skeptical about Joe Mixon, like this gives you a reason to be like, he's out of sight, out of mind, not clicking him at all. But really, like, there are odds where hey, we're just being cautious. Like Joe Mixon just ran for all those yards last year. Like, what is he going to do in the freaking preseason? He's been around the league forever. And here comes week 1 and he's playing through injuries. He's also someone that's like battled through injuries a lot. So there's definitely a lot of risk here. You cannot argue against the upside here too. So I think you have to find that point in running back rankings where like, are you sure that the guy you're drafting has proven upside? And also, like, if he does miss week 1, week 2, those are the easiest weeks to replace. So I'm not like discrediting like the downside risk. It certainly exists, but at some
Right.
point we have to be shooting for upside. We had all those shows that we just did talking about upside. Like, does Joe Mixon have more upside than Javonte Williams? I certainly think so. So like, we can't bury him too far.
My initial reaction was to place him around running back 27, which was just ahead of like Brian Robinson or the Vikings running backs.
Yeah.
Then I thought about it more. And again, I dropped into running back 35 because I think this is maybe the latest example of don't chase injuries because they will find you no matter what. And again, a running back going into a season that is already dealing with a foot ankle issue, even how great he was and how great he's going to fit in a Nick Caley rushing scheme that caters to how good he's going to be, just really gives me concern because we went from the words okay to frustrating in a week and frustrating accompanied with, oh, he's just going to miss the next 4 weeks no matter what. Now, I think the other part of this is if the fantasy community was more excited about the backup running back on the Houston Texans, then we would see Joe Mixon drop even more and those guys go up. But it is Nick Chubb and it is Woody Marks behind the Houston Texans. So how much should we move those names up?
Well, the reports from Nick Chubb, you can just go ask D'Amico Ryans about this, just saying like, well, he's old. He's not very good right now. That's like all the reports we've seen out of Nick Chubb. So I think Nick Chubb was in there to like eat some touches as like an early down guy. And then Woody Marks was drafted to be a pass catcher, but also kind of only like a mid-range prospect in general, kind of more of just a functional pass catcher than like a bell cow type of profile there. So not like the most intriguing options. I do think there's somebody like Devin Singletary or a Travis Etienne, one of these guys that changes teams, like can come in here and eat a lot of snaps. At the same time, like I do think the Aaron Wilson report that Joe Mixon did not have surgery, like this could just be that like, hey, he had an ankle sprain and there's no reason to like rush him out there in July. And then we kind of refresh week one. You're like, oh yeah, Joe Mixon was right there. So I'm waiting.
I hope that's the case.
Every single week that passes and there's no news, you keep sliding them down. I don't want it to be like immediately to 130s land. I think that's like too much.
My other concern is, the final 8 days of the preseason heading into week one, it is radio silence for these NFL teams. They lock everything down, go behind closed doors. We have no idea what is going to happen. So again, I think I'm more concerned about Joe Mixon at this point than you are, but I hope that you are correct because my early summer drafting and bags will be packed if we get this discount on top of it. Just a theory out there, because I think I am going to be higher than you on Nick Chubb. Not because I think that he looked good last year at all. He totally lacked juice. He totally lacked explosiveness. But I do believe that, again, this offensive rushing scheme is going to be improved by Nick Caley. And if we just look at profiles of running backs, Nick Chubb will be the runner. And then they traded a future 3rd round pick to go up and get Woody Marks, who is more of a pass catcher, which, by the way, Nick Caley has been in offenses, with the New England Patriots that have definitely incorporated pure pass catching types on top of it. But, if we look at Underdog, Nick Chubb is going as running back 53. I think in your home leagues, he's going as running back 48. I'm just going to be slightly ahead of that because of the, I think, baked in opportunity that's going to see early on in comparison to the opportunity of almost anyone that is on the board around him.
When I went back to watch Nick Chubb for our just
not good.
He still is very big and he is, I think, fairly fast. He has no wiggle left to right now. And I think that's kind of been the reports out of camp. Also dealing with, he's coming off a broken foot, speaking of feet. So yeah, there's not a direct answer here. If Joe Mixon misses time, I think it's going to be a committee. I think that what will happen, and it's actually going to be really excited for players like Jaden Higgins, Nico Collins. If you want to break ties,
totally.
A bunch of I think this team could just say, F it. We got CJ Stroud, we got Nico Collins. Let's see if that works out. And maybe this is one of these backfields where it's like, nothing really materializes just because nobody really steps up to the plate.
And maybe add the Texans to the list of the Chicago Bears as teams we're wish casting running back trades to. That's part of it. Again, as we get closer to the preseason and throughout the preseason in August, I'm going to be incorporating your home league ADPs on top of this. Joe Mixon is still being drafted as running back 17, 47 overall when you look at like Yahoo's half point PPR ADP right now. So to me, that is a clear avoid to at least where Hayden has him. And then I have him even further down as running back 35. Okay. I'm going to open this section and continue on with the theme of running backs because we have news out in Los Angeles with the Chargers. Omarion Hampton and Najee Harris, specifically Najee Harris, a 4th of July injury. We've seen him at practice, so we see a physical being out there on the field, but we have not seen the eye, and we have not seen him put on any types of pads and participate in drills. So you and I have talked all summer about that, running back cliff, at least on underdog, in the third round after Chase Brown, and you getting kind of questions after that. It's already been changed and altered where Omarion Hampton has found himself in that gap between goes Chase Brown, Breece Hall, then Omarion Hampton, then Kyren Williams. I think that's fair. And in fact, I would even push Omarion Hampton up a couple spots from there.
Yeah, Omarion Hampton's a great late round 3 pick right now. He has a pathway to being a bell cow. He's got the size, he's got the profile, he's got the draft capital. And I think that this Chargers offense could just look a little bit better second year in the system. Hopefully they get that into your offensive line squared away. Joe Alt takes a step at right tackle as well. So yeah, Omarion Hampton's like a total smash pick. And then I posted a chart just looking at like some of these upside hits in the wide receivers in this 3rd and 4th round range has been pathetic for like the last 5 years right now. And I think a lot of those profiles right now, while they're like fine enough players in that range, it's hard to envision a huge ceiling out of a lot of the round 3 players, at least at wide receiver. So I do think that Hampton definitely belongs in that tier. And with the Najee Harris side of this, like initially when they got there, the coaching staff was like, we're praying for him, we're hopeful. There's been like no concrete evidence. They're not like posting a picture of him smiling and stuff. He just seems like a very much up in the air.
They refuse to give a timetable on him, basically.
Right. And they probably can't because it's his damn eyeball. So yeah, I think like the baseline assumption now would be that Omarion Hampton over the next couple of weeks, while Najee Harris is sitting inside and can't look at the sun, that he's just running away with the first team offense, and the rest could just kind of be history.
I've moved Omarion Hampton up to running back 12. He's being drafted in underdog as running back 14. I would say overall in your home leagues, especially on Yahoo, he's being selected as running back 16, and that's 43rd overall. That's a full 13 picks beyond Breece Hall at this point. I've actually ranked him ahead of Breece Hall right now. We'll talk about the Jets backfield here in a little bit. I'm still Chase Brown as running back 11 after all those smashes that we talked about in round 2. But yeah, that next name, I have vaulted Omarion Hampton above Breece, above Kyren Williams, above everyone else. This is a workhorse profile. He did everything at North Carolina. The only caveat to that is Greg Roman has always given a second running back snaps, no matter what. J.K. Dobbins, Gus Edwards, we all saw that with the Ravens as well. Mark Ingram and Gus Edwards even a few years before that. But what are they going to give to Kamani Vidal a year later?
He'll be tested on that theory
expected,
this year. Yeah.
So I'm just expecting Omarion Hampton to, especially in your home leagues, have a chance to really smash. You can get him like a round 1 discount. And if you're drafting now, do it now, because if we get any preseason reps from him, he looks like a gladiator out there in the field.
Yes,
that's for sure. Okay, another running back is all the Jaguars trio. Specifically, I've been the Tank Bigsby guy for the show on months and months and months. The public has been drafting it the opposite, with Travis Etienne, then Bashal Tutin, and then rounds and rounds later, it was Tank Bigsby. We've seen that, at least from the great John Shipley, a beat writer down in Jacksonville, in certain practices, look the opposite and look the inverse. So my question to you, Hayden, is how much should we be flipping and exchanging this running back room in drafts?
I think they should be like fairly close to each other. I don't think any of them feel confident where they should be top 100 picks, but this is the ambiguous backfield of the year. Shipley did miss a couple of practices, and this when he came back from practices, he saw Tank Bigsby looking the best there. I think like my assumption here is that early in the season, Bigsby and ETN are probably going to be splitting the backfield, and then Tutin is just kind of like in development mode. And Bigsby is like probably the better rusher, and then ETN is probably the more well-rounded back there. And we'll see what happens there. And this is most likely going to be a committee, whether there's a winner or not, like a true upside winner. I don't think that we can guarantee that, even though this is an ambiguous situation. Like my baseline assumption here is that this will be a committee where Tank Bigsby is at right now. He's got way more projectable volume to me than a lot of the guys around him. His ADP should climb. I think that we probably hit the maximum of where Travis Etienne was going to be drafted. I have ETN in like the 110s. I got Bigsby ahead of Tutin, but both those guys are like 130s, 140s range. And then we'll see how the rest of this training camp kind of unfolds here. So I think there's just probably not going to be like a very clear-cut answer. But I think Tank Bigsby's a more physical rusher than ETN. I think ETN's probably the most like trusted, like all-around back. And then we'll see if they get anything out of Bashal Tutin.
I love doing the show. Hopefully you all do too. Hayden and I do not compare notes at all heading into these. It's what makes them fun. You and I are totally the opposite here. I think I have Tank Bigsby 15 spots ahead of ADP at the pure running back position.
Yep.
That's because I was already invested in him. I always thought, dating back to week 1 of this past season, that he was a better runner than Travis Etienne. And that bore out in whatever metrics you look at underlying from a rushing standpoint. So it's not surprising to me that, Liam Cohen can review the tape from last year and say, oh, Tank Bigsby is actually the better football player than Travis Etienne is on the field. I'm with you on Bashal Tutin. Like, he is missing some practice time, I think, with a minor hamstring injury at this point. I just think Travis Etienne is a volume sponge, and that's it. Like, he doesn't offer anything else on an NFL field at this point. He's in the final year of his contract. This team and the conglomerate of decision makers have really nothing invested in him. So look, I'm not calling Tank Bigsby a perfect player. You can go back to, the 7 targets that he had in his first NFL season. And that was the worst low light tape you'll ever see. Yeah. I'll also add, he caught 60 passes in college, including 30 his final season, right? He doesn't just totally lack hands, again, despite what his rookie year has said. So I believe that, one, we shouldn't say Liam Cohen made Bucky Irving into what he was last year, and let's impart that into someone's name in the Jaguars backfield. That can't happen, especially when you look at the Jaguars offensive line compared to the 2024 Bucs offensive line. However, I can also say that Tank Bigsby is extremely explosive, breaks tackles, and to me is quite simply a better football player than Travis Etienne at this point. So I'm way over market with him as running back 34 in my rankings right now.
Yeah, quickly, just like defend Etienne. Last year was dealing with injuries. So like that would be like the caveat. If you're doing the Tank Bigsby, I can actually catch passes caveat. I can do that. Travis Etienne was banged up last year. And to me, the efficiency was down. Certainly that offense was a complete mess. He's also had like 1,500 yards. He's been an RB1. So I'm just like, if you want to like throw out last season, then reset, I think that you can still make an upside case for Etienne. But this is like one of those backfields. You take shots on it. You see what happens here. The price tags are low enough. I'm just going with the guy that's like been a fantasy RB1 and seeing what happens. But yeah, this is like a no conviction ranking for me right now. I'm just kind of like basing it off of like what I've seen throughout their entire NFL careers.
Man, I think I'm quietly convicted on Tank Bigsby. And maybe I'm wrong, but it was a lot easier to do that and take shots when he was by far and away the least expensive back to draft. It's going to get a bit more expensive. Again, in your home leagues, Tank Bigsby's going as the running back 43, Bashal Tutin the running back 46, and Travis Etienne the running back 33. Like, that gap between 10 running back spots to me is way too rich to invest in Etienne at that mark ahead of Tank Bigsby. One more back to talk about, and that's in Arizona. One of our favorites in James Conner. Drew Petzing was asked by a reporter that, quote, last year you said James Conner would be your workhorse back. With Trey Benson's growth, do you still feel like that is James's role? Leads that answer with absolutely. He has earned that. And then maybe the more important piece of information is that Petzing was then asked that, do you expect Trey Benson to have a bigger role because of his development in this training camp? And Drew Petzing, the play caller, said, quote, yes and no, and basically said it was game dependent. So a couple things to read there. You and I believe that James Conner can still do it. Underlying metrics point in that direction. 2, he is so important. I think it's undervalued how important he is to the Arizona Cardinals this year. And 3, people are drafting Trey Benson as if he's the pure handcuff running back to no matter what to James Conner. And I would point to Drew Petzing's statements and say, well, maybe not. It kind of might be a running back by committee in that regard.
Yeah, James Conner's the man. It's like you can point to some of these advanced numbers, and it was coming off his very best season of his career. He's one of the highest paid players on the Cardinals. He's a team captain. They love James Conner, and there's also an offense that like pretty much like evolves around the running back. So yeah, he's our RB19, both of us. He's RB19 in ADP. I have him higher in like my overall rankings just because I think people aren't drafting running backs a little bit too late over on Underdog right now. Yeah, with Trey Benson, he is just still in development. Like, they just do not trust him. You can just see it in the way that they use him on tape. I think that makes sense. His vision is a little scattershot. They don't trust him.
Gained 10 pounds this offseason.
Yeah, so that's always a little bit concerning to me as well. Yeah, they're going to ride James Conner for as long as they can. Of course, James Conner is like likely to get injured because he touches the ball a ton. He runs right through your forehead. So there's like some value with Trey Benson, but like, should he go ahead of Tyler Algier? I think that the answer to that should be like, no. I don't think there's like a clean pathway to Trey Benson being like have any standalone value. And I think that I've seen more from some of the like only contingent based running backs, your Charbonnets, your Algier types that have done this before. I'd rather just like go in that direction.
I want to force the running back ranking of James Conner even higher. I think it's difficult because I like all the other 18 running backs being selected higher than him, but it's going to show up even more when comparing him to the wide receivers in the range that he is drafted around, because some of the wide receivers ahead of that are like Rome Odunze, Terry McLaurin, Mike Evans, for example. I'm just drafting James Conner ahead of Mike Evans and over Terry McLaurin. We'll get into some of those names a little bit later on. And I'm not drafting James Conner to think that he's playing 17 games. I think this is where the confusion and the loss in translation happens when you hype up James Conner on social media. No, I think he's touched the football a lot, as you said, so he's going to miss time. But when he's out there, like the dude gets 18, 19, 20 plus touches and is the metronome and the focal point of this offense. It's pretty simple to me.
And when he misses time, you don't get zeros. You
Right.
You add somebody else in your starting lineup. So like, 14 really good weeks, and then you have to find 3 weeks off the waiver wire. That math makes more sense than like getting somebody that might play more games. And but guess what? The guy you think is going to play more games than James Conner, he probably is just the same injury projection as James Conner.
With major life events come major life reflection, whether it be getting married, caring for someone else just as much as you care for yourself, or having a child bring new life into this world. Oftentimes that leads us into thinking about what is ahead, what is in our future. And that's when you should be thinking about life insurance. Don't start tomorrow, start today. And that's where Ethos comes to play. Ethos is an online platform that makes getting life insurance fast and easy. There's no complicated process. It is 100% online, which really matters. When I got life insurance, some doctor showed up to my house at 7 a.m., had to answer all these questions and talk about my medical history and do blood work and all this type of stuff. With Ethos, no medical exam is required. You just answer a few health questions and you get a quote in as little as 10 minutes, and you can get same-day coverage without ever leaving your house. So protect your family with life insurance from Ethos. Get your free quote at ethos.com/the show. That's ETHOS.com/the show.
Okay, switch to another position. Quarterbacks. As the commenters know, it's been a long, long road with Anthony Richardson. But Hayden, sometimes where you start is also where you finish. And if we read between the lines of Stephen Holder or Zack Kiefer, some great writers on the Colts beat and local to the team, it certainly sounds like as soon as the pads came on, Anthony Richardson was simply outperforming Daniel Jones. Your thoughts?
Really low bar there. But this one is somebody that really matters in rankings, not just for Anthony Richardson. Obviously, he's like the big one here, but I think the more Anthony Richardson starts, the worse it is for Josh Downs, Pittman, Tyler Warren. But yeah, I was hopeful that Anthony Richardson would just win this job because like I'm more excited to see what his potential development could
But were
be.
you anticipating that based on all of the words, the press conferences, the moves that the Colt decision makers made this offseason? Because I wasn't.
Well, yeah, we just didn't know when he was going to return. Like this is like on the early time, like the earliest timeline of coming off of that like kind of setback that he had. So he's practicing earlier, and then he also looks as good. And I think that if you're breaking ties, like I would at least break the tie in front of like the guy that has at least a pathway of being really good. And if he does start a lot of games, man, like he is ranked way too low. So I haven't like updated my official rankings on Anthony Richardson, but there's some guys that I just like do not see like a huge fantasy ceiling case, whether they don't run enough or it's gonna be too balanced of an offense. So yeah, he's like one of my favorite like round 16, 17, 18 picks right now. Great quarterback 3 value at this point. Just roll the dice.
I moved him all the way up to quarterback 19.
Woo.
I mean, he was going as quarterback 20, 28, 29, 30. If he starts games, why is it a different conversation this year than it was last year at this time when we were taking him as a top 10 quarterback? Like, shout out to the visionary Denny Heifetz for hopping on this channel 3 weeks ago.
Call.
You should just be drafting Anthony Richardson at this time.
Amari Cooper's going ahead of him. He doesn't have a job. He's unemployed.
It's true.
Like, I'm just saying, how did we decide that Tahj Brooks should go in the same range as Anthony Richardson? I'm just saying, it's the most obvious buy the dip I've ever seen in the history of fantasy
Is
football.
this not
That's
the Underdog Fantasy Football Show? Is that not what the name of this show is?
It feels, though, that there has been a change of heart from the Chris Ballards, from the Shane Steichens, that behind the scenes, at the very least, if I'm trying to read between the lines, that Anthony Richardson is taking things more seriously, that he is doing the prep work. You are seeing all of the clips of him out in practice like 30 minutes early, walking through mentally and getting all these things in. He, like you said, has discussed this. So maybe that's been an expensive, let's say, reality check in the form of Daniel Jones. But at the same time, we've talked about it over these last few weeks that no one improved their standing more in football world's view than Daniel Jones of not playing a single snap this offseason, and people just thinking that, oh, at least he's not Anthony Richardson. But man, as soon as we see Anthony Richardson, and I would put him as the odds-on favorite to be the start of this year, see starting snaps, I'm all the way back in. Sorry.
Yeah, and I think at the same time, Anthony Richardson's probably doing great things. At the same time, they could just be like, I've seen Daniel Jones practice 3 times and the arms just kind of cooked. Like Daniel Jones has had so many injuries, and I thought on tape this last season, the arm strength and then attached to that, his aggressiveness like was completely flushed out. And it's hard to win football games if you don't have great arm strength in the NFL right now. So obviously Richardson's got a long ways to go, and there's a reason why he's ADP creator. He was horrific last season. But yeah, more exciting for Anthony Richardson. How much would he move Pittman, Downs, Tyler Warren? Like half round in rankings or full round?
I think it would move Alec Pierce up and someone like Pittman and Josh Downs down, which was the inverse, I thought, with Daniel Jones. I don't think the offense is going to be nearly as vertical as it was last year, even with Anthony Richardson out there. But just the arm factor in general puts Alec Pierce so much more back on our radar than he was, I think, when and maybe it was wrongfully or rightfully assumed that Daniel Jones was the odds-on favorite to the starting job. Even the local beat writers were certain that this was going to be a Daniel Jones thing, and they have totally flipped their tune. And it's not even August 1st yet, Hayden.
Yeah. Initial reports was we don't know if he's going to be ready to go for training camp. So the fact that Anthony Richardson's out there now is just like that was already a win, and now he's like at least on par with Daniel Jones, if not outplaying him.
Just to again advocate for my ranking as quarterback 19, that's ahead of the Trevor Lawrence, Jordan Love, CJ Stroud area, but then ahead of some pure pocket passers like Jared Goff, JJ McCarthy, even a couple names after that.
That's a spicy ranking, man.
It is. Again, the dude scores rushing points and rushing touchdowns when on the field. I just want to, Zach Kiefer had a great column. They actually got some direct quotes from Chris Ballard. There's one from the GM here. Quote, he didn't have enough experience, both from a play standpoint, but also professional standpoint of how to get ready. I just think eventually Anthony's going to be who we think he can be. I still believe that, whether that's this year or next. I don't know when it's going to happen. Ooh. Eventually the light comes on. I mean,
the
that
next
reads
part is,
that.
That's pretty good. Next, he's already thinking that he's going to be here for next year. Like that's already a win. Yeah.
He said like the next 10 years. Like that is one of the things that even if he plays poorly, they've kind of come around to, okay, we weren't patient. He also didn't do what we wanted to. He's now doing what we want him to do behind the scenes. Now the patience comes in on top of it. And he didn't even play an NFL game in between there. So maybe I'm going over my skis and getting overboard here. But yeah, I'm aggressive drafting Anthony Richardson at this moment. And if you're in your home leagues and you miss out on the elite quarterbacks, he is like a perfect Drake May plus Anthony Richardson, like double tap to get 2 quarterbacks and figure out which one actually starts playing well at the beginning of the season. More quarterback stuff. On the opposite end, Matthew Stafford, back injury, was expected to return to practice this past Monday, then ruled out for the entire week. Hayden, there's a saying in football that, quote, no one used to have a bad back. Correct. It's really something that you manage forever. Where are you at with Matthew Stafford? Because we just talked about Anthony Richardson. It's even more of a massive trickle down when you discuss the LA Rams attached to him.
This one's pretty simple to me. They value scrimmages over in LA. They have one on August 5th because they don't play their players in preseason. If he's not playing and throwing in that, I think like that is like real news for this. Like you can easily say, hey, we're being cautious. It's July. What does Matthew Stafford have to prove out here? I get that. If he's
actions over words.
Yeah. If he's literally not scrimmaging, I think that should matter a little bit. He has like 2 spine injuries. He's had other disc problems and stuff. And I also thought his play like really started to crater when he was battling through some of these injuries this last season. The left tackle still up in the air as well. So the Rams are like one of these teams where like you can paint the picture of them like just being a total smash. And like this just Matthew Stafford, Puka, and Sean McVay once again throwing their Devontae Adams. You can also paint the picture, man, this is a team that just like is too old, 2 injured, and that's a wrap. And that's just like kind of how the NFL season plays out. So with Matthew Stafford, like he was on some previous episodes, like the Rams have been like top 5 in team projections. And like that makes Matthew Stafford a buy. At this point, like there is like some very serious risk here. And I thought his play and his accuracy declined last season versus in other seasons while kind of battling through some of these injuries.
A couple things that hit on here. Peter Schrager used to have a podcast with Sean McVay. Peter Schrager went on Pat McAfee show and said, quote, "I don't think there is a great level of concern as far as Matthew Stafford being ready for week 1. I think the Rams are just being ultra cautious." Like you said, that could be the case, but at some point, actions are going to be louder than words. The last actions that we know are that, yeah, Matthew Stafford got more money, but at the same time, it's also a year-to-year commitment.
Yep. On purpose.
A year-to-year commitment on purpose. Look, we don't have to discuss Matthew Stafford's fantasy viability because you have him ranked as like quarterback 25-ish, and I'm at quarterback 27. The big talking point is, Puka Nacua as a round 1 pick, Devontae Adams as a round 3 pick, and that would be attached to Jimmy Garoppolo, which among backups, not bad, but among supporting 2 top 36 wide receivers overall picks, that is concerning.
Yeah, I think Puka would be able to survive it a little bit better because there's so much manufactured stuff in this offense for Puka, and I think Jimmy G is good enough to handle that. I think that the Devontae Adams reading things through and stuff, I think that would be a little bit trickier for me. So like the problem is like in round 1, like Malik Neighbors has a toe injury. Like a lot of the round 1 wide receivers that we absolutely love are like dealing with some injury related things. So it's like kind of hard to break ties, but I did move Puka like down a spot. Like I moved Christian McCaffrey ahead of Puka, and I did not have that earlier on. And then same thing with Devontae Adams. Like he's now after Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson, after Trey McBride. Like he's like 1 tier down.
So not really moving them among the wide receiver position, but just in the overall board.
Yeah, I mean the problem with like Devontae Adams, like the guys that go around him, like I just don't.
Right.
I'm not drafting.
I'm with you.
Now. So like, what am I supposed to do now? Breece Hall, Omarion, Hampton, like those type of
yes.
Other positions, yes.
The wide receivers in round 3, as you discussed with Jacob on that show, not our favorite investment pick. So I'm not necessarily reorganizing that as much as moving other positions ahead. Okay, let's set a date. All right. What date will we be officially concerned if Matthew Stafford doesn't string together, like 3 practices? Is that August 20th or is it going to be way before then?
Yeah, it's probably in the August 20th range, but I think like every single day that he's not out there, you can move these guys down like a little bit more and more. The problem is like, I do think that Puka is going to be the one that to survive this, just because like we saw what happened. Like they're going to throw him the ball 4 yards down the field, and he's such a monster out there. There's like another thing in the Kyren Williams risk profile. Like aside from Kyren Williams, he also has this team risk associated to Matthew Stafford. So I do think that Kyren would lose a lot of value too if the Rams are like no longer a top 10 offense.
Switch to pass catchers. Let's talk about Isaiah Likely. Broken foot, out around 4 to 6 weeks, had surgery. Ricky, the dog on Twitter, had even suggested earlier that same day that Isaiah Likely was in line to get an extension even more than Jake Ferguson got, which we'll talk about here in a bit. This is significant because, one, Isaiah Likely was huge in week 1 last year and had other spiked weeks for the Baltimore Ravens. They run their tight end personnel groupings different than basically everyone else across the league. But our buddy Rich Rebar pointed this out, that in the 1 game that Isaiah Likely missed, Mark Andrews had season highs in snaps last year and route rate, and that was just 1 of 3 games where Mark Andrews had more than 6 targets. We know Mark Andrews is a demon in the red zone, but Hayden, I think that this injury impacts Mark Andrews and probably vaults him up to the tight end 6 overall.
Yeah, it's like him and Kelsey and Hawkinson and Evan Ingram. Like those guys are all pretty similar to me. With Isaiah Likely, he broke his foot. It sounds like he's going to have surgery. If he does have surgery, that's probably like a Jones fracture, and that is like an 8-week injury typically. So I think it's more likely that he opens the season on the PUP list, which is like missing 4 games, but he's out there for week 1. At the same time, like Isaiah Likely was like not a bankable fantasy asset. Like he is a bankable fantasy asset when Mark Andrews misses time. So I don't think that you are going to be like, you would have been using Isaiah Likely in weeks 1, 2, 3, 4 anyways. But certainly a setback. He should fall in rankings a little bit. He's like really hard to rank. He's like a contingent tight end almost. And like he's better in best ball because you don't have to predict those crazy games where he actually is getting targeted. But yeah, he's a good player. You move him down some. And I would kind of expect him to miss like almost all of September.
I think, again, the major conversation here, there was Mark Andrews, because if we're talking about 6 to 8 weeks miss or pup list or whatever, Mark Andrews last year significantly had his snaps reduced. I mean, I'm looking at it now. Week 3, 33%. Week 4, 46%. Week 5, 6, 55, 50. He was like a mid part-time player, Now he made all of his hay in the red zone, as we discussed. If a target was in his direction, 75% of the time that was caught for a touchdown, which is a ludicrous rate. But I think you and I and everyone in the fantasy community know who the top 3 tight ends are, right? Then after that, it's just major questions of, look, we got burned by Sam Laporta last year. Travis Kelce didn't show what he did in previous years. Still, those guys are 4 and 5. And then after that, it's the Andrews, Ingram, Hawkinson. Then we get down to Kraft and some of these rookies we're about to discuss. I immediately, because this is going to put him as a 75, 80% snap player, I believe, in Mark Andrews, immediately put him and pencil him in as the tight end 6 and feel good about it.
Ironically, Travis Kelce gets a September bump because Rashee Rice isn't going to be out there. T.J. Hawkinson gets a bump because Jordan Addison's not going to be out there. And then Mark Andrews is probably going to get a bump because Isaiah Likely is not out there too. So yeah, it's like opens up the strategy of drafting one of these olds for September when their projections are going to look the best, and then circle back a couple rounds later and draft Colston Loveland, who we'll get to later on, or Dalton Kincaid, or you pick a kind of a more up and coming guy. And that's kind of your strategies. You get the veteran for September, and then hopefully by the end of the year, Colston Loveland is now the new Travis Kelce by the time we get to like Thanksgiving games.
Yeah, I'm not drafting a lot of these guys just for rankings purposes is basically how I'm saying that. Because again, the Ravens do tight end stuff differently. Like they'll put Charlie Kolar and Patrick Ricard out there as like the pure blockers. And then, as you said, kind of rotate the Andrews and Likely stuff as the receiving options. Okay, Galaxy Brain, if Likely isn't out there, does this bump up someone like DeAndre Hopkins in terms of touchdown potential?
Yeah, I think DeAndre Hopkins like a fine pick where he goes. He should be buried in rankings. He's a best ball only pick. I think Rashad Bateman's like kind of like on that redraft kind of range too, where he should just be on your bench. Zay Flowers kind of nicked up right now, but Zay Flowers like a round 5 selection. It's hard to pencil in some upside. I will say, like, as Mark Andrews kind of like slides down in his career, I've seen so much like growth from Lamar Jackson like the last like year that I do think that he can kind of just like offset this a little bit, because Lamar Jackson's passing numbers are going to be like extremely good once again this year, just because of all the growth in the Todd Monken offense.
Let's talk about the Chicago Bears, specifically Colston Loveland, because really since we've been recording shows, he is practicing. He was one of our favorites during the draft process. We both had him as the tight end 1, thought he could change the fabric of a passing game. Ben Johnson certainly agrees. He is the tight end 15 drafted in a lot of home leagues at this point.
Oh my goodness.
You and I both have him much closer to tight end 10. Your thoughts on how people should be attacking Colston Loveland?
So he was right on track. Like from that surgery, he said he's going to be out there for training camp. He is. So you automatically get a boost there, but hopefully you guys were drafting him already because that was the plan. And the more important part of this Colston Loveland stuff is Cole Kmet is running with the 2s. You don't see a veteran who's like a productive, well-paid veteran, Cole Kmet, totally fine NFL starting tight end, immediately running with the 2s. That's because they know what they have in Colston Loveland. So like, to me, if you're saying pick one, you get one Bear this year for fantasy. To me, it's Colston Loveland. It's like not even close. Like
even ahead of Rome.
Well, just like where the cost is right now, he's like in the 120s and stuff. I have him like closer to 100th overall. We're seeing more production out of rookie tight ends in the last couple seasons than we have previously. And yeah, Luther Burden's getting yelled at. DJ Moore, they keep talking like in this like manufactured role. I can see the case where it's like Colston Loveland just like running real routes, sometimes as a wide receiver, sometimes as a slot, sometimes like an X receiver. And like, he's just one of the best players on the football team instantly. That's what I saw at Michigan, and everything about training camp has made me as optimistic as I was before the draft started.
Have you tried to read between the lines at all about the optimism or pessimism around the Chicago Bears offensive function during training camp so far?
With like the Caleb kind of like just different. Yeah, it's a different offense than he's been used to running. I think it's probably by design. Ben Johnson's like, here's how you play within the structure and stuff. And Caleb Williams, like, I think needed that for his growth. But yeah, it's like a new system for him. And the offensive line is better, but they're still trying to figure out exactly who's going to be the left tackle and stuff. So they're probably throwing a lot at these guys just to see what sticks. And they'll probably just kind of loosen up exactly what they want to do by the end of this training camp. But yeah, like expecting Caleb Williams to go from like the 25th best quarterback in the league to like the top 10 guy in the league in this first season with Ben Johnson is asking for a lot.
I try to piece together from exactly what all the national reporters are saying. I know multiple have said it would take, quote, years for Caleb to master this system. I believe someone else said that it's like he's, drinking through a fire hose at this point. And so I'm not going to say concern, but my reaction would be like, hey, we just saw how Cliff handled Jaden last year, and he didn't give him the bare minimum, but he built it from the ground up. This seems to be like, hey, look at all these blueprints, and you need to get this right. And if you don't, we're going to go through all these growing pains. And so I do have this slight concern that Ben Johnson, if he's going to adjust it down or dumb this offense down at all, or is it just going to be like, hey, throw it to the fire. If we're not as successful as everyone wants us to be, then it's going to have some ups and downs versus again, trying to work with him in this regard. Does that make sense?
No, it really does. This could just be the growing pains year once again. He's going to flash more than he has. You're going to see more plays in structure, but it's a brand new offense for this. And every other quarterback that we talk about, it's the first year in the system, still learning. We talked about this with Kyler Murray and stuff. And he's an inexperienced quarterback, there's.
Yeah, I'm still waiting on the Kyler and Petzing thing to really work out.
Right. But I'm saying a lot of new systems take more than a year. And
I'm
by
with
the way,
you.
Jared Goff has been in the league forever.
Right. And it took time too,
Yes.
that definitely took time. And that was with one of the best offensive lines in the league and surrounded by, so again, we got to this awesome final 2 years with Ben Johnson and Jared Goff, but I also think we're all kind of expecting it immediately with Caleb Williams and Ben Johnson. Again, I'll add that it's not even August 1st yet as we're recording this. And so there's still a whole month to go before week 1, and that stuff can click as we go along.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to relay some of the skepticism that is going on and maybe frustration that Bears fans are feeling when watching training camp.
Yep. They're trying to be a league average offense this year. I think anything trying to be a top 10 and stuff.
Are they being drafted like league average? Because all these guys are being drafted so not high, but just so many in this cluster of an area.
For sure. I don't draft that much DJ Moore. We're both, I'm looking at our rankings, about 5 to 10 spots after ADP.
I think I have Rome actually just ahead of DJ Moore overall in rankings.
Yeah. I'm more in line with ADP with Rome Odunze. The guy I'm most aggressive with is Colston Loveland. And I think that he can do so much after the catch and stuff, where even if the offense is still kind of being silly, that it's going to be pretty easy to get him the ball.
Okay, more pass catchers and unfortunately injuries here. Let's talk about the Atlanta Falcons, because Darnell Mooney, I think, laid out for a football, came down with a shoulder injury. This is notable because Darnell Mooney is good at football, was a low-key very good fantasy asset last year, wasn't getting a huge bump like a lot of guys do who took the next step last season. The Atlanta Falcons led the NFL with 86.7% of 11 personnel usage in 2024. And if you look at their depth chart, a third wide receiver that could step up in this regard would be between DJ Chark, David Sills, the college legend, Swagnew, Nick Nash. Kader Tahj had that one catch that one time. So we hope Darnell Mooney gets healthy once again, but I'm not sure how or who could benefit from him being out here.
I don't think we need to pick anybody. Darnell Mooney misses the first game or two of the season, or he could be out there for week 1. We're not penciling another Falcons starter, and I don't think that for best ball it really matters. So you break some ties against Darnell Mooney, but you can only drop him so low. He's kind of in no man's land at wide receiver. The guys right next to him in ADP are Josh Downs and Michael Pittman, who also have some news breaking against them at the same time. Jaden Higgins, I would a little bit of confirmation that he's going to be a starter. These are the kind of guys going around Darnell Mooney. Darnell Mooney is just a good football player, man. And they really trust him. They say he's one of the smartest guys on the team. It's the same system as they ran this past season. He's out there for a ton of routes. Penix doesn't take sacks. This is going to be a very fantasy friendly offense once again. So I don't want to bury Darnell Mooney just because he's 50-50 to play the first week of the season. I think that this injury is mostly fine. So I would put this into kind of, it matters, but not really.
The first day of training camp, we got Michael Penix feeding Kyle Pitts news. They have now become golf buddies, which, if there's anything to link two men together, it's
the links.
It's the links. Any interest in Kyle Pitts at the most depleted price he's ever cost in fantasy football?
My answer is yes. Him and Dalton Kincaid. It's looking at kind of this tier, they've priced really far down. It takes a couple seasons. Both of them have dealt with injuries. The more Kyle Pitts looks healthy, the more optimistic I can get in this offense. It's really that simple to me. yeah, I don't think like their plans like really change with Kyle Pitts. Like if he's healthier, they're going to throw him the ball more.
Yeah, I don't trust the Kyle Pitts as a wide receiver stuff. Like now he'll go up against cornerbacks and they'll just run routes for him. I'm not buying into him stepping up in Darnell Mooney's stead here as a quote unquote wide receiver. At the same time, I mean, I've been very vocal about my, let's say, distaste as a fantasy asset of Kyle Pitts over the last couple of years. It's more difficult to do that when he's drafted as like tight end 17 your home league, tight end 18 over an underdog. Yeah. So like, there's really no point in like beating a dead horse in that regard.
I mean, Brenton Strange is the guy at next to him in line. Like, I think that if you said who's got higher ceiling potential, give me Kyle Pitts. Like, yeah. So I'm relatively in on Pitts and Kincaid.
One more of these top 10, and then we'll maybe do some quick hitters after this. Chris Godwin had a second ankle procedure this offseason. Draft Emeka Egbuka has been a slogan of this show all summer long. Literally every single week, we have some segment of this program that focuses on Emeka Egbuka. He's still being drafted as wide receiver 49 in your home leagues. I actually have Emeka Egbuka straight up ahead of Chris Godwin at this point as wide receiver 39. Where are you at on Chris Godwin, this news, and the fallout from the rest of the wide receiver room?
So when I hear second procedure, like to me, that's like not scheduled. And that has me pretty concerned that he had like another like cleanup procedure on his ankle. By the way, dislocated ankle, like you're dealing with deltoids, your ligaments, fractures. It's a humongous injury. Yeah, I'm not sure if Chris Godwin's going to play week 1. Interesting. Joe Mixon's ADP has fallen more in the last couple of days than Chris Godwin's has the entire summer. Wow. I can't explain that. I don't understand how that could be the case. I think that Chris Godwin should fall. Everything about Emeka Egbuka on tape, and from what I heard out of Ohio State, is proven true this training camp. Everybody adores the kid. He can play inside and outside, knows the playbook, super professional. Yeah, it's Mike Evans also in a contract year as well. So there's a reason why they drafted him, even though they didn't seem like they had a need. I'm just kind of at the point I'm betting against Chris Godwin right now. Like even if he's out there, like he can just like not be the same. Like we're talking about a humongous injury. Like really broke his leg and ankle. That's not good.
Right. Dislocated, all that stuff. In a league that's full of secrecy and weird non-news, Chris Godwin has maybe had the weirdest offseason of all, going from turning down even more money to the New England Patriots to taking this massive contract with the Bucs for them immediately to draft a wide receiver in round 1. Yeah, I was doing some work on a dynasty video that posts tomorrow, and Mike Evans signed that new deal last offseason. I didn't realize it was his contract year because it has like 5 board years after this. It's pretty nuts. So yeah, I mean, if you're still doing dynasty, if you are moving like Emeka Egbuka in redraft, in dynasty, whatever platform, is like the future of the wide receiver room of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. That is pretty obvious.
Very good player.
Draft him now. Again, draft him now. Hayden and I are like at least 9 spots on whatever platform you're out there on, and drafting Emeka Egbuka. By the way, you can be drafting on Underdog at this very moment. It is the best way to prepare for your home leagues. Get those reps in, use promo code The Show, click the link in the description down below. And if you are wondering how you can get our rankings, hopefully we'll have an update on that in the near future. So stay tuned. Okay, let's move these along a little bit faster. I still have 10 more things to hit on here. With the New York Jets, beat writer Zack Rosenblatt, this Jets running back room, quote, might be more 1A and B and not 1-2, quote, this isn't so much a knock on Breece Hall as it is praise for Braylon Allen. The Jets are going to have a hard time keeping Braylon Allen off the field in 2025. You know me, despite the chagrin that you've given me, I've been hyping up Braylon Allen all summer. And I'm not saying he's the best talent out there, but I believe that the New York Jets brass believes that Braylon Allen is a good football player.
Yeah, I think that they're going to use both of them because they don't have any wide receivers to throw the ball to, and this is going to be a very balanced offense. They'll try to win with their defense and ground game, and that will definitely include Braylon Allen. Will the Jets be good enough at scoring touchdowns for Braylon Allen to have any standalone value? I think that's where I kind of get lost in the discussion. And I think he's like a pretty forgettable talent. I think in short yardage situations, yeah, like I get a big dude. But like to me, like this could still be a situation where Breece Hall is like getting fed a bunch of receptions. He's like clearly the 1A in this, and then Braylon Allen's kind of getting like the between 20s kind of like low value stuff for fantasy purposes. But the fact that like they like him means like his standalone or his his contingent based value, which I thought was a little bit up in the air because they still have Isaiah Davis, like is getting more solidified. So like his value should go up. But this is like not like scaring me off of Breece Hall. Like the upside case for Breece Hall is like still very much there to me.
This does move Breece Hall just behind Omarion and Hampton for me when those go back to back. But again, very, very high on Braylon Allen and his potential role in this offense to the point where I have him as running back 44 and he's being selected as running back 56. I do think there's a cliff at the running back spot where you reach a certain name and it's just like, I don't care what the rankings are. I just believe that, either in the situation, the volume, the talent of this player that, even running back 44 to 56, everyone's rankings are going to be wildly different. So it's not that much of a statement that I have him this high, but Rosenblatt, saying that Braylon Allen is faster, that he's awesome in the pass catching game, that he's playing in all three phases and all this stuff. Again, Braylon Allen was the youngest player in his draft class, just turned 21 years of age this offseason, basically. And maybe he's just growing into his game a little bit more. So I've been drafting a lot. And then the number one area when I went back and when we did our second year running back show is that Braylon Allen converted a first down or touchdown on 78% of his runs needing less than 3 yards. And Breece Hall was just at 46%. So again, play callers, coaching staff that came from a Jahmyr Gibbs, Dave Montgomery backfield. Is it that crazy to think that we get somewhat of a split here between these two guys? Not to me.
Yeah, definitely not so. And also the Jets have 4 offensive linemen drafted in the top 43, including a top 10 pick at right tackle. When they're healthy, this could be a really badass ground game. So I think that's how they're gonna try to win football games, especially if Justin Fields' toe is acting up in any way where he's not running as much. Like expect the ball to go to these guys' bellies a lot.
Okay, some quick stuff here. Jake Ferguson signed a long-term contract. Jake Ferguson, I believe, was being drafted as the tight end 14, tight end 15. If I wasn't mistaken. I'm not sure if this changes his value, but maybe puts him on the radar more. The other part of the Cowboys, Hayden, is that their new left tackle and Tyler Guyton, who they took in the first round the year before, had a false ACL report like immediately after practice. And then it came back that it was actually a fractured bone and he's going to miss 4 to 6 weeks. So it's bad news that he got injured, but good news on the front that he's not totally out for the entire year. However, he's just going to be another new starter, his fill-in on an offensive line that has multiple new starters.
Yeah, that Dak's play under pressure last year was worse than it had been in previous seasons. And the ball was kind of spraying. Tyler Guyton was to blame for a lot of those pressures. Guyton just needs more reps on the football field. He was a very inexperienced prospect, developmental left tackle prospect. Him missing camp to me is a fairly big deal. Didn't move Jake Ferguson off the news. He's kind of just to me the third guy in the pass game. I just keep going back to the George Pickens stuff. The more I do research on this Cowboys team, I keep going back to George Pickens. Man, he could be a very much a key piece of that 4-5 turn in kind of winning your leagues.
Should we say an offensive line corner with the Kansas City Chiefs? Because they have a left tackle pick 32 overall. They selected Josh Simmons out of the Ohio State University. He fell to pick 32 because of a major injury that hampered his final season. Lots of questions throughout the entire draft process on how healthy he would be. Well, day one of basically padded practices, he's out there and locking down the left tackle spot to the degree that the swing tackle of the 49ers that they signed is now rotating with Jawan Taylor at right tackle and also rotating at left guard snaps. So it's so notable that one, this is on paper, massive improvement at the left tackle spot, but two, to the point that they're not even giving him rest or rotation. They're already rotating at the right tackle and left guard. So it's a lockdown new blindside protector here for Patrick Mahomes.
This is, to me, one of the most important storylines of training camp practices is the fact that he's out there. It's no brace. He's just out there ready to roll. He would have been a top 10 pick if other teams knew where he was going to be at this point. Jalen Moore being a potential left guard, I think that's a win. If Jawan Taylor at right tackle is making the same mental mistakes as he was previously, now you have just like better tackle play. And last year, the Chiefs number one in quick pressure rate on standard dropbacks. So how does the offense like hit these downfield shots? It's, well, you have better tackle play, so you can actually hold on to the ball a little bit longer. And now you have Rashee Rice, Xavier Worthy, and Hollywood Brown sprinting down the field. It's way more speed than they have this year than they had in previous seasons. So yeah, Mahomes is like one of these guys where it's like, how do you win your best ball leagues? It's like, well, I stacked up Patrick Mahomes, the deep balls come back. And I think that like Josh Simmons would be like the underlying piece of like why all that worked.
Not to infuriate our pal Nick Rudman, but I mean, Josh Simmons, if he played all of last season, might have been in competition for the New England Patriots pick instead of Will Campbell. The other news out of Kansas City is on Wednesday, Xavier Worthy is in concussion protocol. So hopefully we'll update that in the next few days. Okay, next up, Terry McLaurin, contract. He's back on campus, but he is holding in. Any thoughts on Terry? It seems like they are wildly different in their contract numbers at this moment.
Yeah. The Cortland Sutton deal kind of like took a little bit of his leverage away, but this is one where like players don't sit out in games because the fines are too much. They will reach a contract settlement. His ADP shouldn't fall because of the contract. His ADP should fall because it didn't make sense where he was going previously. So he's a 4th round wide receiver. He's due for a lot of negative touchdown regression at the same time. He's very fast, very smart, and Jaden Daniels is good. And they say they want to attack downfield a little bit more this season. All that stuff makes sense to me. But if he scores 8 touchdowns this year instead of the 13 he had last year, then he's a 4th, 5th round selection. So I think his ADP should be falling, not for the contract stuff, but because just regression.
The other news out of Commanders camp is that Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt will at least make the roster.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's a bit of a gap in the fantasy, let's say, conversation of a 7th rounder making a roster versus a 7th rounder pulling an Isaiah Pacheco and becoming the team's lead runner. I think many, and it might happen, are jumping to the final point here because he's competing with, Brian Robinson. He's competing with Austin Eckler. He's already surpassed the likes of Chris Rodriguez and these other guys. So that might happen. I just would say we have a month to go in order to figure that out.
Yeah, it's stock up. He's not redraft candidate. He's a dynasty guy. He's like maybe an 18th round selection at this point. I'm not in the business of drafting team RB3s right now that need a bunch of things to kind of break their way. Does it make me kind of second guess Brian Robinson a little bit? Sure. But I still think that this team, we talked about it on previous shows, 3rd most expected touchdowns to the running back position collectively. Last year, they divvied that up because of injuries. But if Brian Robinson is healthy the entire season, I think most of them would go that direction. But yeah, you should be watching some highlights of this kid and see what they have.
Next, Roman Wilson. You remember that rookie from last year that
barely
didn't play a single snap? He is the running mate of DK Metcalf. Any thoughts on Roman Wilson, Hayden?
Well, I had him as a slot, and he's now playing on the perimeter. That I didn't love that. He did win on some like crossing routes at Michigan. It was a total.
That was all it was.
Season.
It was working like the right slot, crossing route, left, and it was almost like scissor routes with Colston Loveland, and that was who JJ McCarthy was throwing the football to. Is either one of those two guys,
right? So yeah, it's a very low value role because it's going to be a very balanced team. Try to win with defense. They're going to get all 3 tight ends involved. Calvin Austin's also been like talked up in camp as well. So I still think there's a chance that in 2 wide receiver sets it could still be Calvin Austin. I have nothing to say about Roman Wilson. Like I'm glad that he's like in the mix because like that's a career after that rookie season. It's like. And it's completely over. It's no longer the case.
He's doing better than Malachi Corley, for example.
Apparently, according to the reports, the Corley stuff it's not great.
Yeah, who could have seen that coming? Okay, exactly. Let's talk about the New Orleans Saints quarterback position because Kellen Moore has not handed Tyler Shuck the starting job immediately. Every day, I'm logging on to Twitter and seeing Jay Kaner having starting reps, Spencer Rattler having starting reps, and then it's Tyler Shuck having starting reps. I get having a competition. Hey, and I'm also concerned. My Chris Olave and Rashid Shaheed bags are shaking if Tyler Shuck isn't the starting quarterback of the team. Not because I think Tyler Shuck is going to be a world beater, but just because I know that Jay Kaner is not, even if he has his moments in training camp.
It's probably just Rattler versus Shuck, and they're just like trying to figure some things out right now.
Probably isn't good enough for me right now.
No, I know. Here's the upside case for the Saints. The offensive line's better than people think. They've invested a ton into the position, and Kellen Moore is a psycho in terms of the play volume. He had a clip talking about, or the players have been talking about, that Kellen Moore is just like showing them Indiana Pacers in Oklahoma City Thunder tape because they want to like push the break, just fast. Well, this team was really slow with Kubiak still balanced, but if this team just runs 50, 100 more plays this season just because of the tendencies, like that's kind of how you kind of mitigate what the Saints quarterback issues are going to be. So I still kind of like Rashid Shaheed. Apparently he's having a really strong camp. Did you see that thing that Nick Underhill said? He said like Rashid Shaheed and Chris Olave, he doesn't know who's better.
Well, I'm drafting both of those guys.
I know. And
But
Kamara.
if Jake
What can go
Haener is
wrong?
getting starting reps
I
in
know.
preseason games,
I know.
I'm freaking terrified. I can't see that on Sundays.
No. Can't
Even
happen.
one Sunday, I can't see it. Not one.
It's definitely a refresh the box scores team. But
Yeah, but okay, if we know that this is going to be the outcome, then why not already have Spencer Rattler and Tyler Shutt getting these starting reps? Like, it doesn't make any sense that Jake Haener is getting these, in my opinion.
July 30th. I think by the time it's August 18th, it'll be the two of those guys.
Boy, do I hope so. Okay, let's talk about another quarterback. Kenny Pickett out with a hamstring injury in Browns camp. This is another interesting quarterback rotation where, since he has left and been sidelined, it's the two rookies and Dylan Gabriel and Shedeur Sanders getting the most reps, and basically Joe Flacco's not getting any with the ones. I don't know what to make of that, because if Kenny Pickett doesn't make this team because of the injury or misses extended time because of it, I would have just assumed that with his experience in the system that Joe Flacco would be the starter, but then would Stefanski immediately pivot on over to Dylan Gabriel here?
Right. I think it's Dylan Gabriel definitely ahead of Shedeur Sanders. So if it does go to rookies, I think it would be Gabriel, not Shedeur. Yeah, in terms of the contracts and the timing of it, Kenny Pickett was traded for just before they signed Joe Flacco. They like relatively have the same amount of guaranteed money. They can cut or trade either one of these guys. I thought it was going to be Kenny Pickett who's going to be the starter just because he's like the youngest. They traded for him first. But this is a real hamstring injury. He's going to be out, and those are very valuable reps as he was trying to compete. So we're going to see a bunch of these guys throughout the season. I think it'll be Gabriel over Shedeur Sanders, and we'll see if they actually keep four quarterbacks. Very rarely do teams keep four quarterbacks. This could be one of the exceptions here. So, yeah.
You know, this is the team projected for the least amount of points in the league, but yet people are still drafting Jerry Jeudy, Cedric Tillman, David Njoku. I know it depressed prices comparatively, but it's relevant. I think it's relevant. I would have just assumed that Joe Flacco or one of these veterans is going to be the starter in week one, and I'm not as sure as I was in that 2 weeks ago. Travis Hunter, you guys did a whole segment that opened the show with Jacob Sanderson on You Are Drafting Scared. We don't need to talk too much about this, but it was notable to me, and Coach Speak Index pulled this clip that Liam Cohen said the first 6 practices will do some full-time at wide receiver, some full-time at corner. That turned out to be, I think, basically 4 at wide receiver and 2 at corner. And then moving on from there, he will shift mid-practice between the two. It's also notable that, you know, he might have a green jersey on, be practicing at wide receiver. And then when the team goes into special teams, he is talking, discussing with the defensive coordinator and the defensive staff. Just overall, this is one of the lightning rod players of preseason, of draft season. And I have the exact same conclusion that you two do, that he's just going to end up playing like 125% of total snaps from both sides of the ball combined.
That's the only thing that would make sense. Like you're not going to split him up and then he ultimately plays like 100% of the snap. Like you got to make it worth your time of why he's running around there. So yeah, I think that we'll see which side of the ball he needs more. I think they drafted him more as a wide receiver than as a corner. And when he is on the field, even if it's 65, 75% of the offensive snaps, it's going to be more geared to the routes. And then when he is on the field, they're going to scheme him up the ball because that's what he's so good at. So yeah, I was looking at some of the redraft ADPs and it's more in like the 60s and maybe even sometimes the 70s. At that point, you just got to windmill it in and see what happens here. I do think he's going to be a frustrating redraft pick. I think we're going to have to spend a lot of time on stats versus film and our wide receiver rankings, looking at the matchups and seeing the depth charts and exactly figuring out, all right, is this a game where he plays a little bit more corner than he has in previously? So it might be a little bit more of a headache. I think where the price tag is, give me the headache. I'll take some Advil and figure this one out. But I think you're going to have to probably do a lot of research during the season to figure out exactly which week you need to start him.
Yeah, I get comments of what if one of the starting corners like Tyson Campbell missed time, then he's going to be a full-time corner. I could say the same thing if Brian Thomas misses times, he's going to be a full-time wide receiver, you know? Fascinating that he's actually going earlier on like Yahoo's ADP, for example, as wide receiver 29 than he is on Underdog as wide receiver 32. You and I both are way above market on Travis Hunter as like wide receiver 24, 23 in that territory.
Yep.
I just want to be aggressive with a legit rare player. It's that simple.
Yep. Buy the dip.
By the dip. Justin Jefferson dealing with a hamstring injury. Hayden, I believe he's held out for the preseason. This is another one that I'm not sure that we're going to get that much news ahead of week one. This one, if you compare it, let's say, to what the Rams are saying about Matthew Stafford, I do believe like the Vikings are being extra cautious with this wide receiver, versus trying to read between the lines. I'm not sure if there's anything you want to say on this.
I thought CeeDee Lamb should be going ahead of Justin Jefferson
Okay.
the entire time based off of just the comfort level I have in the quarterback situation. And yeah, I have Justin Jefferson ranked like 7th or 8th overall. But I had that before this injury. This is his second hamstring injury. I believe this one's to his other hamstring. Just because he's good, we can't say like, oh, like there's no injury risk here. Like there is some injury risk. The problem, like I said, is like Puka's got injury risk because of Stafford. Malik Neighbors been dealing with a toe injury. Amon-Ra St. Brown had a knee injury. So a lot of these first round wide receivers are dealing with stuff. So it's kind of Gibbs, CMC, give me the upside of those players over Justin Jefferson at this point.
Yeah, when we did our video on fixing the first round, basically, I had Jamar Chase and CeeDee Lamb, and then like a bulk of running backs after that. And I feel comfortable still drafting that bulk of running backs ahead of Justin Jefferson. Okay, 2 more here quickly. Bengals cut Zach Moss. This will certainly make someone like Tahj Brooks interesting during preseason, and to watch that. The closer that we get to week 1, the more we figure out who the true running back 2s are on teams. Now that's different as a true handcuff versus, hey, they can bring in someone if the starter goes down like Chase Brown. But if Tahj Brooks shows out, then he's immediately going to be, around 15, 16, 17, 18 pick over an underdog.
Yeah, Zach Moss broke his neck. He had to reduce his contract, and then just hasn't proven to the team that he's going to be able to rebound from that. He can easily retire here. Tahj Brooks, I think, is going to be the RB3 because Samaje Perine, I think, is a very capable number 2 back, a trusted guy in pure drop back situations as a blocker. So he's more of just a pure contingent play versus Chase Brown, who they seem to love. So yeah, he's in that mix of your Justice Hills, Jarquez Hunters, Jaden Blues, all those type of guys, pure dart throws, more RB3s than solidified RB2s. So in round 18, draftable, yes. But I do want to go back and watch more Tahj Brooks because the reality of him making the team is very evident at this point.
Last one, and it's on defense. The Dolphins lose at least one more cornerback in Kader Kohou. I believe he was the only defensive back starter returning from last season. You and I discussed it, after the Jalen Ramsey trade of what this cornerback room looks like. Now it's even worse. It's Storm Duck. They just signed off the streak Jack Jones, who has had a very up and down career.
He fought my brother one time in 7-on-7 back in the day.
He's probably one of 100 people that Jack Jones has fought before.
Yeah.
Mike Hilton, who was an awesome nickel, but also 31 years of age. Then Cam Smith, Kendall Sherfield, Jason Marshall Jr., Isaiah Johnson. I can keep going on and on with this.
It's not great.
No, it's not great at all. Your thoughts?
I would say it's so disastrously terrible that it's good.
Could it be Bengals-esque?
It's going to be great for the Dolphins players because their run defense looks awesome. Their defensive line is pretty sweet. Minkah Fitzpatrick coming down as well is going to help out the run defense. The corner, this could just be Miami. It's 95 degrees. These corners suck, and it's another long touchdown. And immediately you have Jalen Waddle, Tyreek, and Devontae Chan just collecting a bunch of passes. To me, you're looking at just pure environments. I can't guarantee health on offense for the Miami Dolphins, but great weather for most of the season and a terrible pass funnel defense. That is exactly the type of avenue that you're looking for fantasy purposes. So it's gotten so bad where I think that it's actually a good thing for these teams. And I would rather have a bad secondary than a bad run defense. There was times watching the Panthers where they couldn't stop the run and the clock has been evaporated. If your pass defense stinks, those are just long touchdowns and you get the ball back immediately.
As people know out there, I'm not totally on board of, hey, their defense is terrible, like you said about the Panthers. So that means we're going to get a bunch of offensive opportunities. It is different, like you said, if it's a terrible coverage unit. I thought Anthony Weaver did a great job last year with the hand that he was dealt, all the injuries and things of the sort. Up front, they're low-key loaded if, some of these injured players or rookies step up. I mean, again, Jalen Phillips and Bradley Chubb have missed time over the last couple seasons. Chop Robinson was an absolute terror at the end of last year. They added Kenneth Grant. They added a couple other third-day guys along the defensive line, along with Zach Sealer, who I think is one of the more underrated defensive linemen. So yeah, I mean, there's literally no one else in free agency at the cornerback position for them to like bring in. And if so, it sounds like they just get hurt as soon as you touch the field in Miami. So it's this Dolphins team. It's either like really going to work or really not. And I don't see much of a middle ground in 2025 for the Dolphins.
Definitely not. I think there will be weeks where we are ranking these Dolphins players extremely aggressively. We'll see if we do that for the entire season or if things completely fall apart. But yeah, Storm Duck is your cornerback one. That's never a good sign.
All right. That's going to do it. I'm sure there's even more we could hit on, like Jaden Reed sometimes being in wide receiver 2 sets and half of fantasy Twitter freaking out about that. But there's plenty more weeks. There's plenty of more weeks for us to do that. We have to leave something for, shows next week, the week after, so on and so forth. So if you enjoyed this one, as always, hit that subscribe button. It's totally free to all of you. And as doctors recommend it, 9 out of 10 of them say it helps you win your fantasy league, basically. Plus, speaking of fantasy leagues, I'm dropping a pick by pick internal conversation I had with myself on a Dynasty Superflex plus tight end premium startup on the channel tomorrow. It's a long one. So buckle up. I know a lot of people have been asking for Dynasty content on the channel, and so we delivered it in the form of that video. So you can always join us over on socials, especially on Instagram. That is UD Football Show. Shout out to everyone that has already hit that button. And again, be on the lookout for some maybe rankings news up ahead in the future and how you can get ours in your pockets, on your computer, all that good stuff. All right. Shout out Weaves, Mosho, Hayden, and all of you that hit that subscribe button. Up the villa. We'll talk to you all soon. See ya.